In part 2 this week, we continue our conversation on trad wives, social media trends, and where modern feminism fits into all of this chaos. If you haven't listened to part 1, you might be lost, so please just take a moment and go back to last week's episode and catch up there first. Enjoy.
Yeah, and I feel like now we're bucking that system, and we're like, I'm just going to stay home and be a mom again. Like, this wasn't any fun.
Wait a minute.
I'll just color all day.
Life as a mom, entrepreneur, wife, friend, and human is a lot. Join me, Katie Jacobs.
And me, Brandy Chandler, every Thursday as we have unfiltered, hilarious, and relatable conversations about the ups, the downs, and the chaos of it all.
Pour a glass and pull up a seat.
Because you're always welcome at our table.
So she went from like 100,000 followers to...
Oh, we're still on Ballerina.
Yes.
Okay.
To multi-million followers in 2 years, which is a pretty fast progression for what she does. You know, she's not just selling clothes or, you know, something that like everyone would be interested in. She's but you know what I'm saying? Like, you naturally have a bigger market than like a homesteader. Like, you gotta...
I'd love 9 million followers.
Follow Cheeky Peach if you haven't.
So something in women are liking this. They're liking her homestead playing, because I don't know if it's true homesteading. But you know what I'm saying? So something about women is liking this trad wife, this homesteader, you know? What is that? Is that somebody like me that just got burnt out from doing it all? And so we're like, well, what's the other side of the situation?
Something I read last night about feminism is that the Christian patriarchy is so appealing. I need to get this right, because it offers the guise of protection, but at what cost? That was something that was written, not by me, and I'm paraphrasing a work that I can't reference because I'm not sure what it was. I read a lot when I was diving into this. It might have, I don't know what it was, and I'm going to get it wrong. But I think protection and support is important for humans. And I think we seek that. And I think sometimes that's why we see people get into bad relationships, or like we talked about in our last episode, right? Where you stay in situations and you don't blow up your life because you're afraid of losing support, whether it's financial, emotional, whatever it might be, that the golden handcuffs, whatever it is. And I think it's something that's really important to consider in this conversation is, what is the price that one pays? And I do think that's an undercurrent to this conversation with Hannah Nealman. And it's what everyone, I think the burning question is, what is the price she's paying to homeboy JetBlue? What's his name?
I don't know. He's kind of one of those dads that I can't
Brandy can't tell any dads apart.
They're just all middle-aged men to me. I don't know.
He's just one of them.
He's got a puffer vest on and on clouds, and I don't know.
Brad, chat with that. Who cares?
So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I feel like a lot, because we were told, and this is something interesting I saw on social media too, like, I guess millennials, I don't know. I can't remember what little thing it was, but it was like, we were raised as women and girls to be told we could do anything, but the men weren't raised to know that the women are not going to be the trad wives anymore. They're going to be anything that they want to be. And somebody's got to meet them in the middle and pick up the slack there. You know, this isn't your mom staying home that we're dealing with anymore. And so I feel like part of that comes into play here, because we were told we can do anything, we can be anything, we can be all the things at the same time. Mm-hmm. And now we've done it and we're like, no, This is no fun. I'm not enjoying this.
Well,
it's too much.
Because the men or the partners weren't told your role is gonna shift as well.
Yeah.
And
I'm not blaming it on the guys or anything. I thought that was an interesting observation.
We carry the unseen load along with the new load.
Yes.
And
I think a lot of that has to do with how we were raised. We were told we can do anything, but nobody ever said, but you still have to do all the other things you were already destined to do as a woman.
Right. Yeah. No one sold us. It's like the fine print at the bottom of the contract.
It was like even the people telling us we could do anything had not thought ahead to, well, how are they going to do anything and all this stuff we already expect them to do?
I think that's a great take on it. And that's why this circle back.
Yeah. And I feel like now we're bucking that system and we're like, I'm just going to stay home and be a mom again. Like, this wasn't any fun.
Wait a minute.
I'll just color all day.
I want to say that's true, but I also think it's not true because if you can learn to ask for help, the help you need, get the help you need. I think.
Yeah, but I think a lot of times we've talked about this before. You can't afford the help you need.
No, that's absolutely true.
Because things are so expensive.
I'm trying to be a contrarian.
So like I could have my career and be a full-time job, but can I still afford a full-time nanny? I mean, that's a hard no. Or even daycare. Daycare is so expensive. So I think there's a lot.
But
every situation's different.
I don't think Josh and JJ are going for a beer having this conversation.
Definitely. They are like, I think Josh was like, what? Like, I just don't think he can really get inside a woman's brain. And I'm not putting him down for that. But I think it's just until you've been put in that situation, do you realize? Like, women are just made different. Like we just have our brains focus on different things and they run constantly. And I don't think most men have that.
Something interesting just occurred to me. The dichotomy in this quote unquote tradwife trend. You have one end that's hypersexualizing their relationships in return for financial wealth, getting whatever they want, whatever you want to call that. And then you have the other end of it, whereas this woman who's cosplaying poverty
isn't that crazy?
Has more wealth than probably anybody and is sort of hiding it all. Like literally, I think you put that they literally hide. I mean, they probably have like a smeg.
Yeah, they have all their appliances covered. Like the refrigerator is in a room by itself. Like it's not in the kitchen. Like all of us have a refrigerator in our kitchen. Yeah, the dishwasher is covered by a curtain.
So then you have
so
the
it
high
looks
end
very Little House on the Prairie.
So
but you're Fifth Avenue.
How interesting is that this thing encapsulates such different types of women,
and that's why I think it's not genuine because of things like that.
My brain is
We're just like silent.
My brain is going 9 million miles an hour.
I had to like purposefully not think about this for a while because I mean, I'm like you. I have all the thoughts. I'm like, why are we judging her? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? But then at the same time, I was kind of infuriated by the front she's putting up because I don't think it's genuine. I love homesteading. I have a sourdough starter on my kitchen counter that I'm working on. So there are lots of men that cook every meal. They might not even be married, that cook every meal, that like sourdough, that do the starters, that make their soap from scratch. We're not calling, like they are not on social media saying, I'm a tradwife boy. I mean, to me, that's why
this has become so ridiculous.
I have problems with the tradwife thing because they're just doing things they like to do. But when you try to market it as a tradwife, it just irks me and makes me like not like it automatically. Even though I like cooking from scratch, farming, like all these things, I don't think that makes you a tradwife because you like those things. So I think a lot of the social media accounts should really be more like homesteading accounts instead of tradwife accounts.
But is homesteading cosplaying poverty?
Sometimes I think it can be. And then sometimes
because that really confused
it's
me.
Just real life.
But I think the
Neilmans.
When I thought more about it, I was like, well, I can. You and I had that long conversation. I was like, oh wait, like I I get that.
And I
Okay.
think the Nilmans, with this extensive wealth and a $35,000 stove, I think it's pretty safe to say, like,
that's a safe example.
I just don't feel like, I think that's a clear example of their disgenuine front.
Okay.
Listen up, baddies. Our Patreon is growing like crazy. If you're loving the podcast, it's a phenomenal way to hear more exclusive content, including our monthly catch-ups, which are absolutely hilarious, uncut episodes, shorts, and coming very soon, interviews and more content piggybacking off of our most loved episodes. We can assure you we are unfiltered and maybe even a little feral. So go to the Linktree on our Instagram page at Podcast She Did What to get straight to our Patreon and join today. Remember, if you join as an executive baddie, you'll get an episode shout out as well. We can't wait for you baddies to see this extra content. We're shouting out 2 new executive baddies this week. Thank you to Sid and Rachel. We appreciate you joining us on Patreon. You're just the baddest of baddies.
So I think all of this, we see how we get a little bit confused, kerfuffled over all of it because we're trying to hold a lot at one time. And we're also trying to honor women.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to, I think sometimes when you get really confused, it's important to go back to some very basic principles. And at the core of feminism is the need for equality and justice to be preserved, right?
Yeah.
And at its very, very fundamental core is equality.
Let's talk about all of the feminism waves that you researched.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of crossover, but really the newest wave is the 4th wave, and it's really defined by the way social media has shaped modern feminism and really sort of turned it into a lot of puns and cliches, and that a lot of women are claiming feminism but don't understand it fully and don't understand the women who walked before them to break barriers. And even within feminism, like 2nd wave feminism and into 3rd wave feminism, some of these feminists dissed each other. And it was like,
Yeah.
So there's so much contradiction here. One thing I read,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
So do you think, because we are so far removed from feminism and there are entire generations growing up that don't even have to really think about being a feminist because things have reached such an equal level, that's why there's so much confusion and almost like making fun of
I would
feminism now?
disagree that things are so equal.
You really?
Yeah. I mean, look at the world.
Like, what don't you think a woman could do?
No, I'm not saying what a woman can't do. I'm saying in many cultures what they are not allowed to do.
Oh, okay, so we're going cultural here. I guess
Well,
I was thinking
I'm just
more
taking a
just like-
broader view
I was thinking more just like
of the
US.
world. I don't think, even in Western, I don't, do you think women still, like there's pay equality? Do you think we walk around with fucking rape whistles? Like, I don't think women are treated equally. No.
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I'm not sure. Because, I used to work with practically all men,
Mm-hmm.
and I never really felt unequal. Every now and then, like, a man would be like, "Can I talk to a man?" And I'd just be like, this is all you got, dude. You're talking to me. Like it just, I don't know. But I know not everyone and not every industry could work like that, where I was just like, no.
I think there are probably people who would agree with you and people who would disagree with you. I'm going to tend more towards disagree.
Yeah.
I think there's so much inequality still that exists. That's, listen, have we come leaps and bounds in Western culture? Yes.
But do you feel like little girl, like my teenager, do you think she even thinks about inequality?
No, but I also don't think we did either.
Oh, I didn't ever.
So
Unless it was like a super boy thing.
The first time I thought about inequality was when I worked at a doctor's office and the doctor sexually harassed us, the girls who worked the front desk. And I got so scared that I had to have a nurse walk me out my last couple of shifts when I put my 2 weeks in.
Mm.
So and I was 17, I think. Like he would make you crawl under the desk to unplug the computer at the end of the night. And he would turn off the light and say he does his best work at night. Like I started to become aware of that at that point.
I almost feel more inequality now as a mom than I did at any other time in my life.
Why?
Because it's like you can't do all the things, or I can't to the levels that I want to do the things. Like I could work a full-time job, but I would have to put my kid in daycare.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to do both of those things. Like, well, I guess I could work a full-time, but I don't want my kid to be in daycare. And so it like literally kills me to have to try to juggle a kid. Like we have had a kid walking in and out of this episode the whole time. I'm not putting down my husband, but he's not dealing with that.
Sure.
He's at work. You know, like it all falls on me as a mom. I'm fine with that because
why
I
isn't
want
she in
to
his
be
office?
a mom. Well, he's not in the office today, so.
Why isn't she in the car?
Well, he's on an excavator today, so it's really not appropriate. I mean, that's what I'm saying.
Why is she not
anything.
in an excavator today?
I think that we can all agree would not work out.
No. And let me back up. Like to my point is that was the first time I felt like being a woman made me vulnerable to things I did not want, attention I didn't want.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go to work and make some money. Mm-hmm. I didn't, I was a kid.
Yeah.
And I just think it made me aware that something was very wrong.
Yeah. It's more of a man problem, but we're all saying it's a woman problem. Like we're having to fight for equality, but why don't the men just fight for control over themselves?
Well, why don't the men fight? And they do. Like, I mean,
Well, I mean, like in your instance, why didn't that man be like, no, you need to control yourself? But instead, Katie's like, why am I having to deal with this?
Why am I 17 dealing with
I don't
even know,
and so isn't that
man.
Weird?
Yeah.
Shouldn't we make the men do some more here?
I think that's a great point. One I read and delved into a lot, and for some reason, a lot of what I was reading was from 2017, and the New Yorker had an article called "The Case Against Contemporary Feminism," and we're going back some years because this is 2017, but it cites an author, feminist, Jessa Crispin, who then I went down a whole thing with her, and then I got into Dworkin, and then I was doing some Didion, and it like became a whole thing. But this is something I liked from this article. The effect of the catchy title stands regardless. Crispin's argument, and her book is called, I believe it's called I'm Not a Feminist. Anyway, the effect of the catchy title stands regardless. Crispin's argument is bracing and a rare counterbalance. Where feminism is concerned, broad acceptability is almost always framed as an unquestioned good. Somewhere along the way toward female liberation, it was decided that the most effective method was for feminism to become universal, Crispin writes. And the people who decided this forgot that for something to be universally accepted, it must become as banal and non-threatening and ineffective as possible. Another and perhaps less fatalistic way of framing the matter, feminism is a political argument of such obvious reason and power that it has been co-opted as an aesthetic and transformed into merchandise by a series of influential profiteers. Holy shit, that hit me over the head.
Yeah, that seems pretty like what we've seen.
So fourth wave feminism is really a product of all of this, of this sort of commercialization of feminism, female liberation being co-opted by big business. And Crispin goes on to talk about how large businesses are sort of taking control of this. And if you start to think about it, you have this aha moment.
Well, think about how many shows and movies feature like a feminist.
Well, but think about how, take it a step further and think about how corporate it has become to be a feminist company. And it,
what is it? Certified B Corp? Is that the feminist? What's the feminist? Corp?
Oh, I don't know.
Like the women owned, and they'll have it on their product. And it stands, whatever the little symbol is, it's a woman owned company.
There's a very old saying, follow the money. And it's just like, I don't even know that younger modern feminists understand female liberation, understand the literary works of the women who sort of began paving this road and being aware of the good and bad in it, and having an understanding. I think it's all gone out the window for this aesthetic of being a feminist.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna own I have been guilty of that, of falling into that trap for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. I can see that. Like after reading that, you see it so clearly. You're like, oh yeah, this company always says that. This company always does that, to really promote that and work off of it.
Yeah.
So
it's sort of this perfunctory association.
I had a conversation with my two friends last night at dinner, and we were talking about.
You went out to dinner?
Yeah.
So proud.
Just us girls. We were talking about how the government and hospitals are just such large systems now. They're ineffective because your dad just had a hospital stay. My father-in-law just had a hospital stay. And although nothing went wrong in his stay, like there wasn't like this person was bad or whatever. There were all these little things that made the whole system so ineffectual. But at the same time, it's so big. How do you make any of those changes? So he's a diabetic. Every meal that was delivered to his room came with sweet tea. And the tea sat on top of a ticket that said diabetic. So it's like, whose job is this? Was it the nurse that brought it in? Was it the food staff? None of these people caught it. So you know what I'm saying? So it's like these systems are so big now, they've become ineffectual. And I would almost feel like feminism is like that. Like it's so big now that everybody is having their own offshoot.
That's what Crispin argues.
And we're not getting anywhere because we're all fighting each other.
Because, and this is her argument, and I don't agree with everything she says, but that for something to be universally accepted, it must become as banal and non-threatening and ineffective as possible. Yeah. And here's the thing. If you want to make sweeping generalizations, they have to be edible to a lot of different people. And right? So if you want this sort of sweeping sort of effect, it has to be watered down. And that is kind of her point about feminism. And I tend to agree with it because once I started diving into second wave feminism, it was very interesting to see how it has evolved. Mm-hmm. So
deep sigh.
Well, you guys can see, I think, how provocative all of this conversation is. And here's the thing. Some of you might love this conversation. Some of you might hate it.
Yeah.
I don't think we care. I think we just want you to be mindful and do your own research and have some autonomy in this process of being a woman in 2024. Go do it for yourself. Because if you expect, and it was interesting because I don't get these, old school feminists, they don't pop up in your feed. Like they're not there, right?
They didn't even have social media. They did it without the media.
You have to do some research. You have to do some digging. And do it for yourself. And I think we owe that to ourselves.
Or even make your own wave. I don't even think we have to subscribe to something that already exists. We can choose a new path. And that was my next question. So do you call yourself a feminist?
Before the election JJ ran in, heavily identified as a feminist. After I was treated so horrifically by other women, I felt like the modern feminist had really evolved into something I didn't like, which was sort of this turning on itself. And I was so upset by that I had this realization that I am a feminist, but that has a very different definition to me than it does to quote unquote feminists that I was supposed to align with. I don't think I align with this fourth wave modern feminist. And one of Crispin's other points that she makes is about how we implode, that this sort of implosion on itself and this sort of evil has become evil. And I see a lot of that right now with modern feminism is like, my body, my choice, but I don't like your choices for your body.
Yes.
And I don't like that either. So there's a lot of contradiction here.
So I've never called myself a feminist, but I believe strongly in a lot of feminist ideas.
Why have you not called yourself a feminist?
It just didn't seem to fit. Like there was a lot about it that I was not really into. And so I never but also like the Republican Democrat. I'm like,
it's so politicized. I mean,
it's the same way with feminists though to me. Like I believe in a lot of the feminist ideology. I could not say a complete word today. Ideology, but I'm not like, I'm a feminist. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that kind of plays into it. It's like if you're running around branding yourself as such, are you really? Like, do you really know what you're saying or talking about?
I guess I don't like hard labels.
I don't either.
But I do like, and this was kind of the start of this deeper conversation for us, is you thought Joe Piazza was hypercritical on Hannah Nealman Ballerina Farm at some points. And I did not necessarily, because I had all these questions after looking at Ballerina Farms myself. And I love it when people dissect. I can like dissect something and not really be for or against it. I just want to figure out why all these things are contradicting themselves.
Right. And I think that's a lot of what we've had our conversation surrounding today is like, you might be more confused. We're more confused. I think I'm more confused than anyone.
We know nothing.
And honestly, I think that's okay.
But we provoked some thoughts.
But it's okay to be confused. But keep digging.
Keep thinking. Yes. For yourself.
Keep digging. And don't go to social media. Dig for yourself. Look at and here's the other part of it. I was thinking about this last night because one of the videos I was watching, I was like, like, I love this. I hate that. I love that's okay. I think we have become people who, again, to talk about the social media wormhole, are so used to only seeing what we want to see. It's important to see things you might not agree with or to think about them. Wow, I'm having a really strong negative reaction to this. I wonder what that's about. Let me hit pause. There were a few times through my research that I sort of paused what I was reading or what I was listening to think about why I was feeling so deeply reactive.
What was really irking you about
what was really irking me? And oftentimes it was tied to some belief that I didn't want to let go of, or something I thought to be true that might not be, that's being questioned. And the other part of this that I would say is so important is to think for yourself. Like, I don't like being told because I'm a woman and I believe in women's liberation and feminism that I should have to vote this way or that way, or do this or that, or believe this or that, or, well, you can't be a Christian and also hold feminism, and you can't be a liberal and also hold this set of values. Like, what these people who say that don't understand is that they are a fucking sheep. They buy all these labels, and they are labels that make them easy to market and wormhole. And that is a true belief of mine, whether it's wrong, right, or otherwise. I don't really care. It is my belief that when you say, I am this, I am that, and F you if you don't believe it, and F you if you don't disagree, well, you're the biggest piece of the problem. Yeah. You're the biggest problem in this puzzle of life, because when you decide to write everybody else off, you are now closing yourself off to humanity on a whole.
Yeah. I think that's why I could never be like, I'm a feminist, because I wasn't all of the things I saw other feminists being. It's a
huge contradiction. Like, I think, yeah. And now that I'm thinking of it more, it's like, if I say I'm a feminist, I feel like I'm saying I'm an ally to women's rights, liberation, equality. And that's very important to me. But why do I have to label myself to say it? I don't know. Maybe I'm part of the problem too, or maybe I've been part of the problem.
That's what I'm going to say. I'm pro-women.
And I think that, that again, going back to like, I'm thinking, I don't know. Now I'm provoking my own thoughts and I need to go like, right. in a journal or something.
Well, people,
Wow.
we would love to hear your thoughts on this.
I'm so curious what the reaction here is going to be.
I know. Are y'all Tradwife social media fans? Haters?
And it's okay. And listen, guys, we're not going to come tell us what you really think. Like, that's what our table is about. We're not here because
Look, I didn't
we
even
all
want to
agree.
talk about Tradwives 4 months ago. And then I went off the deep end. And now I'm back to not wanting to talk about them.
he rode
They
the
don't
wave.
even exist for me. I just don't think it's genuine. I think the whole thing
It's
is just
just
kind
not
of
real.
a fad. Yeah.
It's
and
just
so
not
I can't offer any more energy.
Whew.
You
This
did
one-
good, Katie. You did
This one
good.
took a lot out of us.
Yeah. It's one of those works in progress.
I think
You
it
know,
is.
you're always evolving and changing and learning new things. And that's the thing. You do the best with the information you have right now.
And I'm going to close this by saying we are not experts on any of this. Like, we are two women.
I'm pretty sure they know that.
If you're new to the podcast and you're like, oh, this one looks fun.
We don't have degrees
We
in
do not
this
claim to
thing.
be experts in anything. We do not claim. We are two women who are moms of 3 children who live very busy lives.
Who like to homestead a little bit.
I can't.
But we
even
also
claim
get our
that.
nails done and buy a lot of clothes.
Oh, don't even get me done on the nails done thing. That was a whole thing. Anyway,
We are contradictory unto ourselves.
we are a walking contradiction, and that's okay. We are who we are. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. It was, we hope we did you a service.
Yeah.
And I think we did ourselves a service by having this conversation.
Yeah, I think it was enlightening.
It was fun.
I enjoyed it.
I did too. All right, y'all. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.
All right. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with us today. We hope you enjoyed our conversation and can't wait to share another episode with you next Thursday.
Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To keep up with the latest, make sure to follow us on Instagram at Podcast She Did What. We'll be sharing updates, behind the scenes, and announcements you won't want to miss.
And if there's anything you'd like to share with us, whether it be a personal story or feedback on our episodes, you can leave us a voicemail at 762-499-2201 or head over to our website, shedidwhatpodcast.com. Also, feel free to leave us a review down below. We'd love to know what you think.
She Did What is hosted by us, Brandy Chandler and Katie Jacobs, and produced by Studio D Podcast Production.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next Thursday. And remember, it isn't always easy, but it sure as hell can be entertaining.